The small planet of Arden was quiet at night. The fields stretched far and wide, filled with soft blue crops that glowed faintly under the moons. Taran lived on the edge of these fields with his daughter Myra. Their house was simple, built of wood and stone, but it was warm and full of care. Taran was known by neighbors as a man who could repair almost anything. Old machines, broken carts, farming tools, he could always find a way to fix them with patience and clever hands. That evening, Taran sat outside while Myra slept inside. He looked at the stars above and wondered about the worlds beyond. He often thought life might be bigger than farming, but his daughter needed him here, and he was content to stay. The air was still when suddenly a deep sound filled the sky. The ground trembled softly, and a streak of light rushed across the darkness. Taran stood quickly, his eyes wide as the bright shape fell toward the hills near his farm. A loud crash echoed, shaking the earth for a moment. Then all was quiet again. Taran's heart raced, but his hands were steady. He thought of Myra and made sure she was safe inside. She remained asleep, hugging her blanket tightly, unaware of the strange event outside. Taran picked up his lantern and set off across the field, his boots pressing into the soft soil. He moved carefully, not sure what he would find. When he reached the hills, he saw it. A massive shape rested in the grass, larger than any barn or machine he had ever seen. It was smooth and metallic, with curves that reflected the faint glow of the moons. Sparks flickered along its side, and steam rose gently from panels that had broken open. Taran realized quickly that this was no falling rock or storm debris. This was a ship from the stars. He hesitated for a moment, then walked closer. The air smelled sharp, like heated metal. Lights flickered along the surface in colors he had never seen before. One part of the ship opened with a slow hiss, and a tall figure stepped out. The figure was unlike anything Taran had seen. She was enormous, at least twice his height, with skin that glowed faintly silver under the night. Her hair shimmered like strands of light, and her eyes shone bright, reflecting the moons. She looked tired, but there was a strength in the way she stood. She noticed Taran and paused. For a long moment, the two stared at each other. Taran felt no fear, only deep surprise. The giant woman's voice was calm when she spoke. "My ship is damaged," she said slowly, as if shaping the words with care. "I need help." Taran blinked, unsure if he understood correctly. He nodded, pointing to the ship. "You mean this? It fell here." She gave a small nod. "Yes. The engine is broken. I cannot leave without repair." Taran looked at the ship again. He had never seen such a machine, yet something in its broken panels and bent pieces reminded him of tools he had fixed before. His hands itched with curiosity. He took a step forward and set his lantern near the open panel. "I fix things," he said softly. "I can try." The giant woman tilted her head, studying him. It seemed strange to her that such a small human would offer help. But she said nothing, only moved aside so he could look more closely. Taran bent over the panel. Inside were wires and crystals, glowing softly. The design was beyond anything he knew, yet he noticed the same logic of flow and structure that existed in simple machines. Energy moved from one part to another, and some connections had burned out. He touched the side carefully and felt warmth, like the heat of a fire. He looked back at the woman. "It will take time. I need tools from my house." The woman gave a slow nod. "Then I will wait." Taran stood and wiped his hands. "Stay hidden here. People may come if they see the lights. I will return before sunrise." She said nothing more, only watched as he walked back toward the field. Her eyes softened when she saw the small lantern bobbing in the darkness, carried by a man who did not run away. Back at the house, Taran checked on Myra again. She still slept peacefully. He gathered some of his strongest tools, the ones he used for farm machines, and packed them into a bag. Before leaving again, he paused by Myra's bed. He whispered softly, though she did not hear him. "Sleep well, little one. Tomorrow may bring something new." With that, he returned to the hills. The great ship still rested there, glowing faintly under the moons. The giant woman stood at its side, waiting calmly. Taran walked toward her, his lantern light meeting the silver glow of her eyes. He did not know her name, her world, or her purpose. All he knew was that she needed help, and he could not walk away. For him, it was the start of something far larger than he could imagine. And for the giant woman, it was the first step toward meeting the only human who would change her view of an entire galaxy. The night was quiet as Taran carried his bag of tools back to the broken ship. The giant woman stood waiting near the open panel, her glowing eyes watching his every step. She did not move until he reached her side. Then she lowered her head slightly, as if in respect. "You returned," she said softly. Taran gave a small smile. "I said I would. Now, let me see what I can do." He placed his lantern on the ground and opened his bag. The tools inside were simple metal wrenches, old pliers, small cutters, and a few homemade instruments he had crafted over the years. To Taran, they were enough. He crouched near the glowing wires of the engine and studied them carefully. The woman knelt beside him. Even kneeling, she towered over him. Her silver skin caught the moonlight, and her hair shimmered like strands of light. She watched quietly as he tested each part with calm hands. "This machine," Taran said after a while, "is unlike anything I have seen. But the flow is clear. Energy moves from here to here. This part is broken. I can build something to replace it." The woman's eyes widened slightly. "You see this already? You understand?" "Not all," Taran admitted. "But enough to try." For the first time, the giant woman gave a small smile. It softened her face, making her look less like a stranger from the stars and more like someone who could be trusted. "My name is Zira," she said. Taran nodded. "I am Taran. My daughter is Myra. She is sleeping in our house now." Zira repeated the names slowly, almost tasting the sound of them. Taran. Myra. Good names. Hours passed as Taran worked. He used bits of metal from his bag, bending and shaping them to fit into the glowing panel. His hands moved with care, as though every wire was part of something alive. Zira handed him tools when he asked, her enormous fingers surprisingly gentle. She was impressed by the way he created solutions from simple things. "You do not fear me," Zira said at last. Taran chuckled quietly. "Why should I? You asked for help. That is enough for me." In her world, people bowed when she entered. They feared her power and her name. But this small farmer only saw her as someone in need. It was strange and new to her. By dawn, Taran had built a rough but working connector for one of the broken systems. When he fixed it into place, the panel gave a steady glow. Zero leaned closer, her eyes shining. "It works," she whispered. Taran smiled, brushing dust from his hands. "Only one part. The engine is still too weak. I will need more time." Zira nodded slowly. "I will wait." The first rays of morning touched the hills, painting the ship in soft gold. Taran stood and looked toward his home. "I must go back before Myra wakes. She will wonder where I am." Zira tilted her head. "Myra? Your child?" "Yes," Taran said. His voice grew warm. "She is all I have. Her mother is gone, so it is only us. I must care for her." Something gentle passed across Zira's face. She thought of her own family far away, hidden behind walls of duty and wealth. For a moment, she envied this human man who lived a simple life yet carried so much love in his heart. When Taran reached his house, Myra was already awake. She ran to him with curious eyes. "Papa, where did you go? I saw a bright light last night." Taran paused. He had promised Zira he would keep her hidden, but Myra was sharp. He sighed softly. "I found something strange near the hills. Do you want to see?" Myra's eyes lit up. "Yes." Later that day, after tending the farm, Taran led Myra toward the ship. The great silver form still rested quietly in the field. Myra gasped when she saw it, her small hands covering her mouth. "It is so big," she whispered. Zira stepped forward, her tall form casting a shadow across the grass. Myra froze for a moment, then slowly stepped closer. Zira lowered herself to one knee, making her less frightening. "Hello, little one," Zira said softly. "I am Zira." Myra blinked up at her, then smiled. "I am Myra. You are very tall." Zira gave a small laugh, the sound like music. "Yes, and you are very small. But strong, I think." From that moment, Myra was not afraid. She began asking many questions. Where did Zira come from? How far were the stars? Did her ship really fly in the sky? Zira answered some, but kept her secrets close. Still, she enjoyed the child's curiosity. Taran watched the two together, feeling something new stir in his heart. He had expected fear, yet instead there was wonder. His daughter was making a friend unlike any other, and he himself had been given a task far greater than fixing a farm tool. As the sun lowered that evening, Taran promised Zira he would return again the next night with more parts. Myra begged to come too, and Zira agreed happily. The ship was still broken, but something else had begun to take shape in those quiet fields. A bond was forming between a human family and a giant traveler from the stars. None of them yet understood how deep it would grow, or how it would change all their lives. The next few days passed in a way Taran had never imagined. His mornings were spent caring for the farm with Myra, and his nights were spent by the silver ship, working on repairs with Zira. Slowly, the routine became natural, as though the ship had always been part of the fields and Zira had always been part of their lives. Myra loved spending time near the ship. She would sit on a flat stone and watch her father's steady hands at work. Sometimes she tried to hand him tools, pretending to be his little helper. Other times, she wandered around the glowing panels, asking Zira endless questions about stars, planets, and the life she had seen beyond their sky. Zira answered what she could. She told Myra about planets made of crystal where light shone like rainbows in the air, about oceans deeper than any mountain on Arden, and about skies filled with 2 or 3 suns. Myra listened with wide eyes, her imagination stretching farther than the fields she knew. "Do you have children on your world?" Myra asked one evening. Zira's expression softened. "Not like you, little one. My people live long lives, but families are different. I never had a friend like you." Myra smiled proudly. "Then I will be your first friend." Those words stayed with Zira long after Myra ran off to collect flowers in the field. She looked at Taran, who was bent over the open panel, adjusting the makeshift part he had built. "Your daughter is strong," Zira said quietly. "She is bright and fearless." Taran glanced up, his hands still moving. "She is my light. She gives me reason to keep going every day." There was warmth in his voice, a warmth that surprised Zira. She had seen loyalty and duty in her world, but not this simple love that asked for nothing in return. During the day, Zira sometimes visited the farm when it was safe. She had to be careful, for her size could easily frighten others if they saw her. Yet within the small farmyard, she found peace. She helped Myra carry buckets of water, her enormous hands steady and gentle. She sat beside the crops, listening as Myra explained how seeds were planted and how the soil must be cared for. "You rule the stars," Myra said once as she pressed a seed into the dirt, "but you never planted one seed before." Zero laughed softly. On my world, others do this work. I was taught to lead, not to plant. But I like learning from you. Myra grinned. Then now you know. Planting means waiting and caring. You cannot hurry it. Zira nodded, realizing there was a quiet wisdom in the child's words. Tayran watched from a distance, surprised at how easily his daughter spoke with the alien. For him, it had taken time to grow used to Zira's towering presence, but for Myra, it was as simple as breathing. Children did not carry the same walls as adults. One evening, Tayran needed to build a new tool for the ship's engine. He searched through his shed and found an old piece of farming equipment. With some cutting and bending, he shaped it into a tool that could reach the narrow channels inside Zira's engine. When Zira saw the tool, her eyes widened with admiration. You made this from nothing. Tayran shrugged lightly. From what I had. That is the way on Arden. We make do with scraps. Zira held the tool delicately, almost as if it were treasure. On my world, tools are built by machines with perfect design. Yet you shaped this with your hands. It works, and it is yours. That is rare. Tayran did not think much of it, but Zira kept the tool close, as though it meant more than he knew. The repairs moved slowly, yet progress was steady. Each night, the ship glowed brighter as systems came back to life. Tayran often lost himself in the work, but he never forgot to return home to Myra. Zira sometimes walked with him to the edge of the fields, watching the small lantern he carried back to his house. You live simply, she said one night as they stood together. Your home is small, your tools are few. Yet there is peace here. In the stars, everything is loud and heavy with duty. Here, it feels quiet. Tayran looked at her. Quiet can be good. Too much noise makes you forget what matters. Zira thought about his words as she returned to her ship. She had always believed power and wealth were the measure of life. Now, she wondered if perhaps peace and love could weigh even more. The nights grew longer, and the bond between the three deepened. Tayran saw not just a stranger from the sky but someone who could laugh with Myra and share quiet moments under the moons. Myra saw not a giant but a friend who listened to her stories. And Zira saw not just a farmer but a man whose steady heart reminded her of something she never knew she was missing. The ship was still broken, yet something else had already been fixed. A bridge between two worlds, built not with metal or wires, but with trust, patience, and kindness. The nights on Arden grew cooler as the season slowly shifted. Tayran wore his old jacket when he went out to work on the ship. Myra always wanted to come along, but sometimes he asked her to stay home, especially if he thought the repairs would take all night. Still, she never stopped asking questions about Zira or her ship. One evening, as Tayran adjusted a glowing crystal panel, he heard a faint sound coming from deep inside the ship. It was a voice, soft and quick, speaking in a language he did not know. At first he thought it was part of the engine, but then he realized it was coming from a small device on the wall. The voice grew sharper, then changed into words he could understand. Zira, respond. Your absence has been noted. Return at once. Tayran froze, his hand resting on the panel. The message repeated, waiting for an answer. He looked over his shoulder. Zira was outside, helping Myra gather dry branches for a small fire. For a moment he thought about calling her, but then he stayed quiet. The device went silent again, and the light on it dimmed. When Zira returned inside, Tayran kept his face calm. He did not mention what he had heard. Still, the words stayed in his mind. Whoever sent that message spoke with authority, as if they expected her to obey. That night, after Myra had fallen asleep in the warm glow of the fire, Tayran sat beside Zira near the ship. The moons rose high, silver and calm. Finally, he asked the question he had been holding back. Zira, who are you really? Zira's glowing eyes softened, but she did not answer at once. She looked up at the sky as if searching for the right words. I told you I am a traveler. That is true. But there is more. My ship is not just mine. It belongs to my people. They expect me to return. Taran studied her face, waiting. He did not press her further, but his silence invited her to continue. I am not free like you, she said slowly. I was born into a life of duty. Where I come from, my word can move thousands. Yet here, in your fields, I feel lighter. Your daughter speaks to me as if I am only a guest, not someone to be feared. You work beside me as if I am simply a stranger who asked for help. No one has ever treated me this way. Taran gave a quiet nod. Then maybe that is what you needed. Zira smiled faintly but said no more. She still did not tell him the full truth, but Taran sensed she carried a secret much greater than she revealed. In the nearby town, whispers had begun. Farmers spoke of strange lights in the hills and unusual sounds in the night. A few had even claimed to see a silver shadow against the stars. Taran knew it was only a matter of time before someone came searching. He warned Zira to keep the ship dim during the evenings. We cannot draw attention, he said firmly. If they find you before the ship is ready, there will be trouble. Zira agreed, though she looked thoughtful. She had faced far greater challenges than curious farmers, but she respected his worry. She had grown to care for Myra and Taran in ways she had not expected. One afternoon, Zira sat quietly in the field while Myra braided flowers into a small crown. Myra placed it gently on Zira's silver hair and giggled. Now you look like a queen. Zira froze for a moment, then laughed softly. Perhaps. Taran, watching from the porch, felt a strange twist in his chest. Myra's playful words echoed in his mind. A queen. Was that closer to the truth than Zira wanted to admit? That night, Taran returned to the ship alone. He placed his hand on the panel that had spoken before. It was silent now, but he wondered how many more messages had gone unanswered. Whoever waited for Zira must be important. When Zira entered the ship, he met her eyes. Soon, people in town will ask questions. They already whisper. Are you ready if they come? Zira stepped closer. Her towering form cast a shadow across the glowing walls. Yet her voice was gentle. Do not fear for me, Taran. I have faced many questions before. But here, with you and Myra, I do not wish to face them at all. I only wish to stay. The words surprised him. She, a traveler from the stars, wanted to remain on his small farm with its wooden house and simple fields. He did not know what to say, so he only nodded. That night, as he walked home, the sky above glittered with countless stars. Among them, a single faint light moved quickly across the heavens. Taran watched it, wondering if someone else was already searching for Zira. He hoped her secret would remain safe, at least until the ship was ready to fly again. Inside the ship, Zira sat quietly, holding the flower crown Myra had made. For the first time in her long life, she wondered what it would be like to choose her own path instead of following the one given to her. The ship grew brighter each night as Taran's repairs continued. The panels no longer sparked, and the hum of energy sounded steadier than before. Zira often stood beside him while he worked, her tall frame casting long shadows across the grass. Myra usually played nearby, chasing fireflies or asking Zira to tell more stories about distant worlds. One evening, while Taran tightened a glowing wire with his handmade tool, Myra rested her chin on her hands and looked up at Zira. When your ship flies again, will you leave us? The question hung in the cool air. Zira looked down at the small child with her wide curious eyes. She wanted to answer quickly, but the truth caught in her throat. At last, she said softly, yes. The stars are my home. I cannot stay forever. Myra's face fell. She picked a small flower from the grass and turned it in her fingers. I wish you could stay. It feels like you belong here with us. Zira gently reached out and touched Myra's shoulder with one careful finger. You are my first true friend. I will carry your words with me, no matter how far I go. Tayran listened quietly as he worked. His heart grew heavy. He knew Myra was right. Somehow Zira had begun to feel like a part of their small family, even though she came from far beyond their sky. That night, after Myra had fallen asleep in her bed, Tayran returned to the ship for one more repair. The moons were bright, lighting the hills with silver light. Zira waited for him, holding the flower crown Myra had once made. Tayran, she said, her voice calm but thoughtful. Do you wonder why my ship is so large, why I carry such power inside it? Tayran glanced at her. I have wondered. But you will tell me when you are ready. Zira took a deep breath. For days she had hidden her full truth, but now the weight grew too heavy to keep. I am not only a traveler. I am the daughter of the High Ruler of the Celian Dominion. In your words, I am a princess. My family commands many systems across the stars. My wealth is greater than all the fields of this planet. Tayran set down his tool slowly. He stared at her, trying to understand. He had guessed she was important, but the truth was larger than anything he imagined. You are a princess, he repeated quietly. Zira nodded, her glowing eyes fixed on his. Yes. If my people knew I was here, they would come at once to take me back. They would never imagine me working beside a farmer on a quiet world. Tayran's face showed surprise, but he did not step back or bow. He simply folded his arms. Princess or not, you still needed help. And you are still Zira to me. For a moment Zira could not speak. In all her life, people had always treated her as someone higher, someone untouchable. But here was a human who looked at her as if her crown meant nothing at all. She felt something warm grow in her chest, a feeling she had not known before. Do you not fear me? She asked softly. Tayran shook his head. I do not. You are a traveler with a broken ship. That is enough. Titles do not change who you are. Zira closed her eyes briefly, touched by his words. She held the flower crown in her hands and whispered, This means more to me than any jewel of my world. In the following days, the bond between them grew even stronger. Myra continued to treat Zira as a friend, asking her to play small games and showing her how to cook simple bread by the fire. Zira, though unused to such things, tried each task with patience, laughing when she made mistakes. One afternoon, Tayran found Zira kneeling in the garden beside Myra. Together they planted seeds in the soft soil. Myra explained each step as if she were the teacher. Zira listened carefully, pressing a seed gently into the dirt with her giant finger. See, Myra said proudly. Now you planted your first seed. Zira smiled warmly. It feels different from commanding ships. It feels peaceful. Tayran stood nearby, watching. His heart filled with quiet wonder. He never thought someone from the stars could find joy in the same small tasks that gave meaning to his life. But he also knew that Zira's truth meant her time with them was limited. A princess could not remain hidden forever on a farming planet. He worried for Myra, who had grown so attached to their towering friend. He worried for himself too, though he did not speak it aloud. That night, when the fire burned low, Zira spoke again to Tayran. When my ship is ready, I must leave. But before I go, I want to give you something. Not treasure, not power, but a promise. I will not forget you or Myra. And one day, if you choose, you may see my world with your own eyes. Tayran looked at her across the firelight. He wanted to say many things but only gave a slow nod. We will see what tomorrow brings. The ship was nearly whole again, but none of them were ready for what the future would demand. The sun rose slowly over Arden, painting the fields with soft gold. Tayran wiped his hands on a cloth, stepping back from the ship. It shone brighter than ever, its panels smooth and humming with energy. After weeks of hard work, repairs were complete. Zira's ship was finally ready to fly. Myra ran around the yard, her laughter filling the morning air. "It's ready. It's really ready," she shouted. Zira knelt to hug her small friend. "Yes, Myra. Soon I will leave, but I hope this day will be remembered." Taran watched quietly, his chest heavy. He had spent hours fixing each wire, tightening each panel, and ensuring the ship was safe. Now it stood like a silver mountain in the field. It was beautiful, but it reminded him that soon, Zira would be gone. Zira stepped inside the ship and examined the control panels. Her movements were precise, almost graceful, as if she had done this countless times before. "Everything is perfect," she said, her voice calm yet filled with a hint of sadness. "Soon, I will return to my world." Taran approached and placed a hand on her arm. "I know this is your duty. But I hope you remember what it feels like to belong somewhere. To have a place that is quiet and simple. This is not just a ship or a title. This is a home you have discovered with us." Zira looked at him, her eyes shining. "I will remember, Taran. You have shown me kindness I never thought possible. I came here to hide, but I found something far more important: friendship, care, and trust." Myra tugged at Zira's long sleeve. "Promise you will come back to visit." Zira smiled and hugged her tightly. "I promise, Myra. No matter where the stars take me, I will remember you always." The town began to notice the glowing ship. Farmers and neighbors approached, curious about the strange silver structure. Taran stepped forward to speak for Zira, keeping her secret safe. "It is a ship from a distant place. We have been fixing it for weeks. Now it is ready to leave." Some people asked questions, but none of them guessed her true identity. Zira stayed inside the ship, quietly observing, her heart full of gratitude for the small world she had touched. As evening approached, Taran helped Myra climb onto Zira's shoulder. From there, she could see the top of the ship. "Be careful," she said, holding onto Zira's hair. "Don't fly too fast." Zira chuckled softly. "I will be careful, little friend." When the moons rose, Zira activated the engines. A gentle hum filled the air, louder and stronger than the wind. The ground beneath them trembled lightly as the ship lifted a few inches. Taran stood beside Myra, holding her hand tightly. "Ready?" Zira asked softly. Taran nodded. "Ready as I will ever be." The ship lifted higher, hovering above the field. Myra waved excitedly while Taran called out, "Remember to come back." Zira smiled at him, her glowing eyes filled with emotion. "I will. Always." The ship rose higher, passing the trees, the hills, and finally disappearing among the stars. Taran and Myra watched in silence. For a moment, the night felt empty. But it was not sorrow that filled them. It was hope. They knew she would return one day. Back on the ship, Zira looked down at Arden. She remembered Taran's calm voice, Myra's laughter, and the quiet nights beside the fire. She realized that even a princess could learn from simple human life. She had been born into power, but here she had found something even greater: friendship, respect, and love that did not come from fear or wealth. "Thank you," she whispered to the stars, "for letting me discover this place, these people, and their hearts." Taran and Myra returned home, sitting together on the porch. Myra rested her head on her father's shoulder. "Do you think she will come back soon?" Taran hugged her gently. "I believe she will. And when she does, we will welcome her just as she is." As the night deepened, a faint light glimmered far away in the sky. Zira's ship, small against the stars, moved steadily toward her home world. Yet in her heart, she carried Arden, Taran, and Myra. She knew that no matter how far she traveled, this small planet and its people would always be a part of her life. For Tayran, the nights felt a little quieter without the hum of the ship. But he smiled each time he saw Myra dreaming peacefully. She had learned that the world was bigger than their fields, and that sometimes, even the tallest, strangest traveler could touch hearts in ways no one imagined. And far among the stars, Zero looked down at Arden once more, her heart full. She was a princess, yes, but she was also a friend. And in her mind, she silently promised that no matter the distance, she would return to the people who had shown her the meaning of home. Days passed on Arden, but Tayran and Myra never forgot Zira. Every night, Myra looked up at the stars, hoping to see a flicker of silver light. She told her father, "Maybe she is smiling at us from up there." Tayran smiled, brushing her hair gently. "She is. And one day, she will come back." Far away, Zira's ship glided through the stars. Her home world was vast, filled with shining towers, great ships, and planets connected by glowing bridges. She had returned, as duty demanded, to greet her family and report her journey. Yet her heart remained with Arden. Her parents, rulers of the Celian dominion, were proud to see her return. They asked countless questions about her time on the small planet and the human who had helped her. Zira spoke carefully, telling only parts of the story that were safe. She could not reveal Tayran's world to them, yet she could not forget it. Even among the stars, she often thought of the quiet nights by the fire, of Myra's laughter, and of Tayran's calm strength. She realized that friendship, care, and trust were treasures far greater than gold, jewels, or power. One morning, while walking through the palace gardens, Zira paused by a fountain. The water reflected her face, but in her eyes, there was a spark of longing. She wanted to return to Arden, to see her human friends again. She knew it would not be long before she would find a way. Meanwhile, on Arden, life went on. Tayran taught Myra new skills in the fields, fixing small machines, planting seeds, and learning about the stars from books. Though Zira was gone, her memory inspired them. Myra often drew pictures of a tall, kind alien woman, with shining eyes and a gentle smile, standing beside a bright silver ship. One evening, as Tayran and Myra were watching the sunset, a faint glow appeared in the sky. Myra's eyes widened. "Look! I see her." The glow grew brighter, moving steadily toward Arden. Tayran squinted, a smile forming on his face. "It looks like someone has come back." Zira's ship landed smoothly in the field, its engines quiet. She stepped out, towering over the grass, and Myra ran to her with open arms. "You came back!" Myra cried, hugging Zira tightly. Zira knelt down, careful not to overwhelm her. "I promised, didn't I? And promises are important, no matter the distance between worlds." Tayran approached, his eyes soft with emotion. "Welcome home, Zira. Arden has missed you." Zira looked around at the familiar fields, the small house, and the stars beginning to shine above. "I have missed this place too. It is small, quiet, and simple. But it has shown me more than any palace ever could." Together, they walked toward the house. Zira listened as Myra told stories of her days, of planting seeds, and learning new skills. Tayran shared the repairs he had made on the tools and machines around the farm. Zira laughed, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Even as a princess, nothing was more joyful than being with friends who treated her as herself, not as a title. That night, they sat by the fire. Zira shared gentle stories from her world, about distant planets and stars. Myra listened, her eyes wide with wonder, while Tayran nodded, imagining the vastness of the cosmos. Zira's ship glowed softly nearby, a reminder of the journey she had taken and the worlds she had touched. She realized that home was not a place, but the people who made it special. Arden, Tayran, and Myra had given her something priceless, a sense of belonging. Before leaving the next morning, Zira knelt once more to Myra. "Remember, little friend. Even when I travel far, I carry you with me. And you will always carry a part of me." Myra smiled, holding Zira's hand tightly. "I will wait for you, Zira. Come back again soon." Tayran placed a hand on Zira's arm. "And remember, no matter what happens in the stars, you will always have a place here with us." Zira nodded, her eyes shining. "I know. That is the greatest treasure of all." The ship lifted smoothly into the sky. Myra waved, and Tayran waved too. Zira looked back one last time before heading toward the distant stars. She knew she would return, and this time, she carried with her the knowledge that even a princess could find a family far from home, in the hearts of those who accepted her as herself. As the ship disappeared among the stars, Arden felt a little brighter. Tayran and Myra smiled at each other. They had helped a traveler, fixed a ship, and, more importantly, had become friends with someone extraordinary. And somewhere among the stars, Zira smiled, knowing that no matter where the universe took her, friendship and love were stronger than any crown, brighter than any jewel, and more powerful than any kingdom. The bond between them would remain, unbroken across worlds, shining like a star for all time.